We are back here now on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to continue on talking from the last segment on the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens game from last night. The Chiefs squeaking out with a win there. 27-20 was the final score, but 27-20 obviously alludes to the fact that it was a close game, and if you did miss out the ending of that game because you thought the Chiefs were just going to wrap everything up, you certainly missed a great ending to that game. Just in all, wrapping it up in the final three chances, basically starting from there and talking about it, that Lamar Jackson had at the end of the game, that the Ravens had at the end of the game, right? Talking about this idea towards the end of the game, you have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in Lamar Jackson, and the ending of this game is going to draw a lot of headlines, right? Obviously, because that's when the game could have been at least tied or potentially won, because after, what we thought was going to be called a touchdown with Isaiah Likely catching it in the back of the end zone, John Harbaugh was sort of signaling like they were going to go for 2 points, so the Ravens could have won it and could have made this game even better if they stole one in Kansas City, but focusing in on those final three chances in the red zone for the Ravens, right? And that comes up with this question that I will try to answer in this segment. The three chances that the Ravens had at the end, right? The first one, it was a sailed throw out of the back of the end zone towards the left side of it, if you're watching it on, obviously your television, to Isaiah Likely, just Lamar sailing it out of bounds. Isaiah Likely looked like he was going to, his game was going to end right there, the way he fell on his arm, but he ultimately came back right for the last throw. But that was a throw that got away from Lamar. Some people say that it was an easier throw to make, if he just places it anywhere else but where he did. But I think in the context of the game and everything like that, it seems easy, and I think Lamar just tried to make it a little bit too perfect, or just try to make it as least of a hard throw as he could, right, if that makes sense. He just tried to kind of sail it in there and put it up high enough for Isaiah Likely. He didn't want to have any chance left out there for the corner or somebody to make a pass breakup on it. He wanted to put it high enough for Isaiah Likely to go up and get it, but he just sailed it. He sailed it out of the back of the end zone. So that was their one chance, right? They're 0 for 1. Then, still with enough time remaining, they had another throw, and this one was the one that I thought the game was over because of the fact that Lamar, takes the snap. He's back there moving around, looking for options. He kind of scrambles over to his right-hand side, and you see Zay Flowers come open in the back of the end zone, and you're thinking, that's it, right? After you're watching the replay, like, Zay Flowers is wide open, like, probably 6 to 7 yards from the nearest defender in the back of the end zone. He sticks his hand up, telling Lamar, to look over to him, and obviously looking at it in fast motion, once you see the replay, it looks like a really bad miss from Lamar. He throws it behind him, Zay Flowers keeps running, and everyone's kind of just left there speechless. I thought the time ran out. I wasn't really looking at the clock, but there were still 4 seconds left, and they're very fortunate to have that, because if the game ends on that, it looks even worse on Lamar because of the fact that Zay Flowers was that wide open. But I would cut Lamar some slack on that throw. I feel like he was more in the right, looking at it more so, because if I remember correctly from the game and watching it live, it looked like there was a linebacker or somebody in the vicinity where Zay Flowers would have been running to, and Zay Flowers kept running. So if Lamar sort of leads him, tries to float it in there over the defender that's in front of Lamar Jackson, he might have an errant throw, he might throw an interception or something like that. So the window was there for Zay. If he stops moving like Lamar thought, that throw is probably right at his face, and the game's probably either going to end or we're going into overtime, right? But what was even crazier about that was that Lamar said that throw was going for Rashad Bateman, and I don't even remember where Rashad was on that play. But regardless of the fact, if Zay stops moving, he was catching that anyway, whether or not it was for Rashad or Zay, whatever it was going to be wide open. But Lamar obviously missed the throw, and now he's 0 for 2, but there's still 4 seconds left on the clock. And now comes the hardest throw that Lamar has to make to Isaiah Likely, right? He fits it somehow into that window. Perfect spot for Isaiah to catch it over the defenders. he does a great job of getting his feet down, but unfortunately that right big toe, the crown of his shoe, is just barely out of bounds. The game ends there, and it's a crusher for this Baltimore Ravens team. Now Lamar falls to 1-5 against Patrick Mahomes. The Ravens fall to 1-6 against the Kansas City Chiefs in their last 7 games, and Baltimore hasn't won in Kansas City since 2012, almost 13 years ago that happened, and it's obviously looking bad now. You look at this game, all the hype being built up around it, and a lot of that attention, a lot of the determining factors that were gonna decide this game, apart from the Kelseys, the Rashee Rices of the world, the Xavier Worthies, the Derrick Henrys. It was all about these quarterbacks. And we talked about it leading up into this game, and how much of an important win this could have been for Lamar and why the pressure was on him over the Ravens. I'm pretty sure that was the question, whether there was more pressure on Lamar or on the Ravens as a team. And it's a similar question now because of the fact that we're talking about probably the two most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. Both are able to do unimaginable things on the football field. Lamar, you saw it a lot last night with his legs. His greatest virtue, his greatest difference maker is the ability to run. Now losing some of that weight, he looks very, very sleek out there. He looks very agile, very bouncy, and he was taking some hits that he kind of bounced off of, so it doesn't look like it's affecting his strength or his ability to take any hits. And he was just running past guys, almost like similar to Xavier Worthy, the way that he just accelerated past guys. Lamar was doing that from the quarterback spot. And then you have Patrick right on the other side doing great things more and more, just making the impossible look routine. The throws that he makes are just always on the money. Everything is just efficient with Patrick Mahomes. And both of them are right up there at the top of the mountain. Both of them have 2 MVPs in the NFL regular season, but the distinction starts to come in these big moments, right? In these big moments where you have to have it, especially when you're going up against another great quarterback. These duels that we have the pleasure of seeing, it always gets decided by who misses a throw, who messes up on one, who just slightly overthrows it, and it usually does happen to be Patrick Mahomes coming up on the right side of things, and that's what distinguishes him from the rest of the pack, right? Joe, Josh, Lamar, all great quarterbacks, but there's no question when we talk about the best being Patrick Mahomes, because when you have these moments, nobody has a doubt that he's going to come through, and that's, I think, where Lamar you still need to see it, and I don't like saying that because he does usually come through against other teams. He has such a great winning record against the rest of the NFL, but when it comes to the Chiefs, when it comes to Patrick Mahomes, and the other team is like the Steelers or something, Lamar, it seems like when you have to have it, when you have the Chiefs, when you have Patrick in your grasps, whether or not it's getting ready to win the game or tie the game, something, always fails, something always falls short. And it's confusing, right? Because you look at Lamar just last night with his legs, almost 400 yards of total offense just himself. And with how spectacular he was, the Ravens are not in that game whatsoever if Lamar doesn't do what he does. If he doesn't go insane running the ball, making some pretty crazy throws to his credit, the Ravens aren't anywhere near the Chiefs in this game. And that's the positive side of having a quarterback like Lamar, right? You try to base everything around him. The game plan, the scheme, and everything like that is so solely based around Lamar, all the designed runs and things like that, the RPOs, the quick throws and everything. It's great when you have that, when you are able to benefit from his abilities, right? But on the other side of it, it almost becomes like an over-reliance on it at times, and that's when you get this debate of whether or not you do put all the blame on Lamar, because he was the sole reason that the Ravens were in this game to begin with, doing everything, bailing them out, getting first downs, making it a nightmare for the Kansas City Chiefs defense. But when you do all of that, and then finally we get to the prove-it moment, we get to that big moment where you have 3 chances, right, to win this game or to tie this game. having Patrick Mahomes just sitting watching on the sidelines. It's Lamar's show right now. He did so well, the Ravens did so well to execute that 2-minute drive, and now they have 3 chances, and to go 0 for 3 with those throws, it makes everybody, unfortunately, forget how the Ravens even got into that spot, because they didn't play well at all. It was a very disappointing performance, I would say, just because of all the uncertain factors on this team. The offensive line had a very rough start. I think Ronnie Stanley had 3 illegal formations just on himself, some false starts in there. It was very ugly to start, but even still, they were in that position to potentially win this game. And when you get into that moment, right, a lot of fans might be thinking, like, I don't know how we're in this spot, but we have a chance here. We're getting ready to potentially tie the game, and then you end up losing that. It's very disappointing because most fans didn't even expect to be there. Most analysts or anybody talking about this game didn't expect the Ravens to be in this position, just based on the fact that the Chiefs were looking a lot better than them in this game. But somehow we ended up here. And now that you have this golden opportunity where you're not playing great, but you're still in this game with the reigning Super Bowl champions, you have to make those throws, right? And it's an unfortunate circumstance to be in with Lamar, because again, they're not in this game without him, but also they don't win this game because of those throws that he didn't make. And that's the whole, that's each aspect of this spectrum with Lamar, right? He does everything you need to get you up to this point, and sometimes when you get up until the end, the throws that he might not make, come back to bite you, and then you're left with just a very odd feeling of thinking that you were playing great, that you have this great quarterback, and Lamar is a great quarterback, I'm not questioning that, but you were so close, even in a spot where you weren't, and then in the end, the guy that was doing everything for you, kind of let you down. And it's a weird juxtaposition to be in because, again, Lamar is right there, and I think other than Patrick, he's got all the personal accolades and everything like that, he's the closest comparison I think you can have to anybody on the level of talent and specialness that Patrick has. But to answer the question, is this loss more on Lamar or on the Ravens as a team? You could point out to the struggles that the offensive line had, but the defense played better than I thought they were. And I think just unfortunately, I think I would have to put this more on Lamar because that's the standard when you're talking about having a player like this. If Josh, Joe don't make those throws also, they are going to get the same level of criticism. So Lamar being in that core group of just elite quarterbacks, you have to hold them up to that standard. And it is a weird way of going about it just because he did everything for this Ravens offense. But again, the results of everything is what matters in the NFL, obviously. So people are going to look at that, those missed throws, especially when you have Patrick Mahomes on the other side. And if you switch the roles, if you give Patrick those opportunities, those exact windows that Lamar Jackson had to Isaiah Likely, to Zay Flowers, and even to, again, Isaiah Likely, Patrick is probably completing 2 out of 3 throws that Lamar unfortunately missed. So that's always going to be the difference. Patrick compared to Lamar, they're going to continue to be compared because they are 2 of the best in the NFL. That's what it comes to. Those are the margins that you're dealing with when you have a player like Lamar on your team. And is it fair, unfair? That's not really what this game is about. It's all based on the results and execution rather than being put or being analyzed in a fair way. It's more often than not going to be fair, and that just happens with the territory, the reputation, the resume that these quarterbacks have. They have to come through in these big moments when you have the Super Bowl champions teetering, and stealing a game at home would have been huge, obviously, for the head-to-head tiebreakers and things like that. But now, unfortunately, you start the season with a loss, and it's a brutal one because you were right there and you didn't even play very good. But it's something that they're just going to have to pick themselves up from. I don't know who they play next week, but I expect them to get their first one in the win column. But overall, like a tough loss for the Ravens. But I think most of it will just have to fall on Lamar because he is the Baltimore Ravens, right? They don't go anywhere without him. And when they usually play bad, he's usually at the heart of it. And you take that in the good, and you also have to take that in the bad, unfortunately. So that's the game last night. We could talk some more about a lot of different things, but we're going to have to move on and preview tonight's game with the Packers taking on the Eagles down there in Brazil. We're going to go over the latest news with each team, the matchups, and the key factors that I think will decide this game, as well as giving my predictions on tonight's winner. That is coming up right after this break.